Hello, Rachel.
Hi, Ryan. How are you doing?
Just noises. That's how I'm doing. I'm communicating through a series of noises because I have been pushed over a cliff and I'm just hanging on for dear life. How about yourself? How are you doing, Rachel?
All right.
All right. Naomi just walked in. I don't know where that actress is from in the UK, like what area she's from, but I am noticing that since she is British, she gets to say a lot of words differently from the other cast members, and I can't tell if that is purely an accent thing or she just isn't saying the same things correctly. Like
Amos?
Yeah, she used to call him Amos, and then that changed. Somebody had a word with her in between seasons, and then everyone else calls it the Rossi, and she calls it the Rossi, and because Rocinante, yes. But you said all right, and it makes me think of our own impersonations of her when we talk about her, and how delightful it is. But we are here on this podcast known as Yum Yum to discuss science fiction television one episode at a time, and we are a married couple. We walked down the aisle, and no, it was not...
Oh, you met me at the end of the aisle, to be fair.
Well, there you go. I met Rachel at the end of the aisle so that she could give me these type of little corrections, because that is what we like to do. We like to be attentive, get the details super correctly, so you don't need to tell us if we got them wrong, because I believe we get it right all of the time with no flaws.
I think I'm wrong most of the
because
time.
we are professionals in this field of podcasting, because we have covered some science fiction shows. Star Trek Discovery is where we originally
also, people
kicked off from.
to hear this first.
Though, yes, we release our discussions on the Expanse for our patrons on Patreon first, but we started out with Discovery, a series that gave us the line Yum Yum, a line of dialogue so absurd yet so brilliant that it is carried along with us everywhere we go. We bring it into our podcasting experience. We named the show after it so we could never forget, and so that you could never forget, that a character licked their lips sexily, breathily. Oh my, I'm getting hot and bothered thinking about it. She replied with yum yum as just a yes response. And I say, is that normal? And people say, no, it isn't, but also it makes sense in the confines of a narrative.
Does it?
In
I don't
a
think
script.
it does.
In like a show with a certain attitude, if they said yum yum, you would go, oh yeah, but in that moment, in that series in particular, it was so out of left field that it left us dumbfounded for years. And that is why we are Yum Yum, and we are talking about The Expanse, a series that I initially gave up on. I watched a few episodes and then I just drifted off. I didn't mean to give up on it, but it just did not connect. And Rachel, you haven't seen The Expanse before. Not one episode of it until we did this podcasting experience. Yeah?
Yeah.
You even thought that it was a show from a different time, a different era, a different decade.
I did.
And here today we are exploring the final episode of its second season. Caliban's War is the name, and that is, I do believe, the title of the second book.
And I do think that that's following the pattern of the season finales being named after the books.
We'll see if that continues to be the case. And as said, we have never seen this series before. We have no clue what's going on, never read the books, never consumed any of the behind the scenes. There's very little I know, nor do you, about what lays ahead. So if you are listening to us and you are familiar, make sure to button up those lips. Do not spoil things for us. And if you want to chat about it amongst yourselves, you can do so. We release this on our Patreon first, and there we have a group Discord where there's a private little channel, a little thread of spoilers, and I'm sure people are just having a grand old time looking back at our speculations we've made in the season and just saying, wow, I can't believe these goobers got that wrong. But I want to know what IMDb describes the season 2 finale, and how highly rated is this? I don't know what it has to say.
This is the description that they offer up. In the final episode of this season, the crew of the Rocinante comes face to face with an evolving intelligence infused with the alien proto-matter.
And we're going to keep on shooting it. And if that doesn't kill it, we're going to force it out the way it came in. All we have to do is make sure it gets onto the hull so Alex can roll the ship and dump it into the drive plume.
Hold it. Rex, we gotta burn that thing down to its fucking atoms.
Is there a plan B?
Yeah, make sure plan A works.
Yum Yum is a moment that also was not just strange. What else was it, Rachel?
Sexy.
And?
Weird. And full of energy. You keep on gesturing at me like, and what else? And it's just like, I could go on for days, Ryan.
Hear that? She admitted it. She admitted that she could talk about the Yum Yum thing for days. So
cumulatively, I think we might have. Between all of the episodes of all of the different Yum Yum series, I think we've said very similar things over and over again, but I think we're definitely up to hours and hours.
But why are we referencing the fact that it is innately sexual?
Because we're about to discuss the Yum Yum moment of this episode. The moment, the line, the visual that made us lick our lips and go yum yum.
Rachel likes Amos because he's very attractive, he's a bad boy, but he's got a heart of gold somewhere in there. And she likes to give us all the automatic Amos pick because there may be some other choices, but there's always going to be an Amos one at the center. Even
we went through a bit of a dry spell.
We went through not just a dry spell, but a fucking rough patch. And I have no selection that isn't Amos involved. He was shirtless. His pants were low. He had that, I don't know what that's called, that part of
the V.
The V that goes from the hips down, and you know where we're talking. And it
frames his groin.
I couldn't look away, nor could you. I actually said, Rachel, what are you doing? Look up, because she was looking down at the ground for some reason.
Oh, I was doing a craft.
I thought you were going to say doing a cry. Just, oh no, he's so hot. He's so hot. Why isn't Ryan this hot? Fuck me. And I said, no, she's my wife, Amos. You can't fuck her. There's no other selection in the episode. That's one of the sexiest things I've seen, and this is a series that's had sex in it. Amos
it's better than the 0G sex that we started this whole thing off with.
Don't forget how buff Holden is.
I have not. But Amos is hotter.
I don't know how to describe this, but both of them are like physical specimens. But I feel like if I worked really hard, I could
attainable level of buff.
I could get to Alex level buff.
But not Holden and not Amos.
Fuck, they're from another dimension. I don't know if anyone could other than them. They are jacked as shit. But that is the only Yum Yum that I could attain from all of this. I mean, Kotya bleeding out was pretty cool, but that was more cool than it was sexy. Caliban's War, Season 2 finale, it's all been building to this. A wrapping up of a season can be what makes or breaks that said season. Makes it whether or not you want to continue watching to the next one. So what did you think of Caliban's War as both an individual episode and a finale?
I will also add to that list, it can change your mind on what came before. Game of Thrones is a very big touchstone for that.
Of course. Again, makes or breaks.
Yes. But I feel like already, if I went back to season 1, there would be things that I would look at differently, if not appreciate more, having gotten to this point in the series. I thought it was a really good episode. It's not like my favorite, but it's just solid.
And as a finale to this season, which we have had a pretty decent time with, but also there have been moments of drawback. How do you look at Caliban's War in that framework?
Here's my response to that question. It's awfully specific to me. If we were watching this episode by episode when it was coming out, and I had to wait like a year to get the next season, I wouldn't be invested enough to start reading the novels in full, but I would be invested enough that you would have to work really hard to convince me not to read a summary of the book.
Oh, you are one of those people where I have to say, no, don't look up that character from The Sopranos, and then you do, and then you walk up to me and say, oh, they die later, and I'm like, why did you do that? And you just said, it was an accident that I looked it up, except for I typed it in with my fingers, and I pressed things, and I looked, and I scrolled. I agree. Although there have been moments in the season where I am compelled to know how it's different in the book, rather than the season itself selling me on, oh, if I can't watch the next episode or season or seasons right now, I should look at the books. I haven't really thought about The Expanse, the series, as a thing to sell me on reading the novels at all, but you raised that. I just wanted to comment on it. I thought this was an okay episode overall. It didn't really do a great amount for me. I thought it was quaint, and it falls into that camp of the season finale where it's more of a quiet episode. Yes, there's big things that goes on. There's a monster, there's explosions, there's people that live and die, and there's cliffhangers, but I found the overall atmosphere and pacing of it to be relatively calm. I didn't think it was as tense and nail-biting as other ones, but nor did I need it to be.
No.
It was a very meditative note. It's one of those ones where when we reach the
pause rather than a ramp up.
When we reached that final scene and it was the end and credits, wait for next season, I wasn't throwing my hands up in the air going, oh my God, I can't wait now. Let me get it into my vein. I just went, oh, yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
As a season finale, I think this complements the premiere episode really well. I would be very keen when we are done with the series to do that little experiment of watching the season premiere and the season finales back to back to see how they mirror and complement each other. But I do feel like this has that quality to it, especially when we see how far the characters have come, the characters we have lost, and yet also ones we have gained along the way. The dynamics have shifted. The way that we understood these characters have altered and shifted and changed along the way. As a season finale, I think it really does a lot of work in tying up or at least putting a nice bow on a lot of the concepts and themes we have been tackling, especially the notion of technology changes us, that we will use it to be awful to one another, but that is a part of the human condition, and that
you can't put a cat back in the bag.
Oh, totally right there. And I think as a thematic piece, this works very well. But as an individual episode, it's definitely not one of my favorites. I think I preferred last week's a lot more. That had a smorgasbord of things I like, while this had a good little helping of it.
There's a maintenance crawl on the other side of that wall. It should lead us to the elevator shaft.
That is not going to work.
Right. You'd never make that climb.
Jesus Christ, not because I'm old. He's been shot.
Plus, she's really old.
I want to jump into something, which is I was super proud of myself because I heard a voice and I went, that's a cameo.
Mm-hmm.
I know that voice. I know who this is. Are they going to show his face? And they do. And Adam Savage is fucking there.
Of Mythbusters fame.
He is on the Venus crew and he dies.
It was distracting to me that it was Adam Savage once you said that. I'm like,
You rewound it.
I had to rewind it because I didn't notice him because he's one of the many faces. And although I grew up with Mythbusters and I've watched videos of his voice didn't instantly click for me. I didn't instantly catch and go, oh, that's a guy from not the world of acting. Venus crew. So we'll start there with Adam Savage is here too, by the way, as a cute nod because I guess he's a nerd.
Dr. Accent, dead. Prediction right.
He's dead? I guess.
He's
assume-
not the same. Whatever happened or is happening on Venus, he is not going to be the same the next time we see him.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of their story in the episode because we're going straight to the possible demise. We have a little journey be complete where Janus and Dr. Accent are now far more on the same page. They basically finish each other's sentences. They've become a couple.
They take each other's roles on. It's cute.
And it works. They don't need to give us so much screen time of these guys to make me convinced that they've reached this point. It is very clear that they were always minor to secondary characters. So them reaching this bro point where they're calling back to their younger days and they are completing one another's thought processes and reversing roles, it works. Even though we didn't get a lot of, like a whole buttload of stuff, we got the correct amount for the priority of this story.
We got enough.
And
it did the job.
It did the job. And so
I feel like I'm going to say that a lot throughout this episode of it does the job.
They decide it's time. We need to go down to Venus. There's stuff happening there. It doesn't make any
out
sense.
Of probes. We've got the Martians up our ass. Let's just do it.
And it's evolving. The longer we wait, who knows what it will become. The atmosphere is changing. It's affecting the gravity this way. All of this science, mumbo-jumbo, techno-babble talk, which I'm sure is accurate. This show likes to get a lot of things fairly accurate when it comes to the science of it all. And they plunge themselves down into Venus. Their ship spreads out and it has like little parachutes or
it
like
becomes like a flower.
It becomes like a buoy in space. I really liked the look of it. This is something we haven't talked about in a while.
It's like the design matters.
Yeah.
And they pay attention to that in this show.
We're not huge on ship designs when we watch shows. On the occasion, we'll have something to fawn over, but we haven't discussed it in a while. Ship designs in The Expanse, even something down to a small science vessel that's plummeting into Venus. What do you think about the designs of the ships in this show? Do you like them? Are there any standouts? Do you find them memorable to look at?
I do not find the Rossi particularly memorable because it really does just look like a can to me. Like, it looks like a tin can in space.
It reminds me of a ship from a sitcom called Hyperdrive, starring Nick Frost. I'm fairly certain it's been a very long time since I've seen that series, but that series had a ship that reminds me of the Rossi. And I actually...
It's a very basic thing, like... And it makes sense for what the Rossi is. It's a gunship. It isn't designed to look sleek or elegant. it is designed to be maneuverable and efficient.
It's a strange thing. Usually in these series, I gravitate towards the ships because of what's on the outside, the exterior, the way they maneuver, the way they contrast against space, and the way that they fight against other ships. But the Canterbury, the Rossi, their science vessel, it's all about the interiors. I think the interior designs of these ships are very well done.
Mm-hmm.
They
I
all
agree.
speak to what the actual ship's purpose is. They have a lived-in quality, but also that they're sparkling and new, while some other ships are grimy and old, like the Somnambulist is a used ship. It's been around the block, and yet the Rossi is a newer ship, so it looks cleaner, even though it has a few holes in it. They go down to Venus, and the Martian ship goes down first.
Well, it overtakes them.
It decides, oh no, they're going, we're going first. They didn't even bother to shoot them. They just decided, no, we're overtaking you on this one. You suck. Eat dirt, Earth. And that's a good sign. I like the visual of it too, of this big Martian ship just nose diving down into Venus. It's just, if we understand these planets, we've seen them all of our lives, yet there's still something superb and unnatural and unreal about seeing a spaceship or a craft actually go inside of these gaseous places and these other worlds.
Yeah, like it's weird that we're getting more detailed pictures of the surface of Mars now, and it's just like that's actually it.
Oh,
That's actually it? Like, we've gone from maybe we can get to the moon to like, here's what Mars actually looks like.
And we barely even see what Luna looks like in this series as well. We hear about it, we obviously see the moon, but we don't actually see what Luna
No, we
is.
haven't really seen the settlement.
And we see the Venus crew die, or at least their ship has a moment of free fall and it stops and everything's normal again.
All of the sirens stop, the red lights go away, it all goes blue. So we're like, blue good?
Well, oh yeah, all the blue spores come through. And then...
But even before, I feel like the spores come in a little bit after. It's just like all these blue lights. And then you kind of see the spores, and it's just like I knew that they were coming. I knew that they were coming.
And what happens?
The ship is torn apart.
But in what way?
It's like meticulously disassembled, like a parts diagram. So it's all floating in space, but separated out.
And perfectly still.
And we see
The people.
members of the crew just frozen in place.
Just floating there. It is deconstructed. The proto-molecule is exactly that. It breaks something apart to understand how it all works.
It's learning.
It's learning. And it breaks it all apart, figures out how it works, and then can rebuild it or reconstruct it into something else. And it does this with their ship, but leaves them intact. They are just left there. It's not like they've broken apart. It's not like they're infected. They are just...
But they're being sustained by something.
Are they dying, or is there air there? Because they are floating and they look...
appear breathing, and they do not appear to be freezing or burning.
Or, yeah, having their eyes explode out of their head, or any of the symptoms of being in the vacuum of space or in a poisonous atmosphere we've seen before. They're just ragdolling there, and there's this look of shock and amazement between the two men. And that's it. That's all we get of it. And this has been the culmination of half the season with this story, and it's fine. It's weird. That's what I appreciate about it the most. It's sufficiently weird.
The job done?
No, because there's still more to explore there, but it's sufficiently weird.
It takes the next step.
I like that this series can still have surprising visual elements to itself. We have seen the blue goo do so much at this point, and from the death of Miller to the infection of Julie, have an idea of what it looks like when it consumes, when it interacts with something foreign. Yet this is completely different to what we've seen.
Yeah, it's something new, it's something different, and it highlights the potential of the proto-molecule.
There's no doubt about it, that crater is active.
And we're fresh out of probes. This is where you say we have to descend so we can get close for our sensors to get meaningful readings.
And then you point out that we'd be at the edge of what our ship is rated for and that our Martian shadow is probably going to shoot at us.
A ship design that was rather catching to the eye was Mao's. Mao had a ship that looks like a building in space. It's very much one where you can tell it's made for the visual appeal rather than the practicality of it, like the Martian ships.
It's a cruise ship.
It reminds me of those very fancy buildings you would see in, say, India or Korea. It just has this very angular yet spiral-like look to it. And so we are on Mao's ship, and we are picking up where we left off. Christian and Kotia and Bobby are in a standoff. They are left for dead, and Mao's men are pointing guns at them, saying, "Don't go anywhere. Don't you dare move. Let us kill you." And Christian and Bobby and Kotia say, "No, thank you. I think we'll live."
We're going to have a scheme here. We're going to have a scheme.
Kotia gets shot. He grabs out his gun. He shoots a guy down. Bobby's there helping as well. They flip a table over, but he got one in the chest or in the gut area. It's kind of like, how would you describe, like, whereabouts would you describe? It's still like in the torso area, but it's kind of like just in that middle part.
Yeah, it's
not a good area.
High enough that it could have hit some vital organs. It's not low enough to have just, like, gone through his stomach.
It's a worrying shot. He doesn't even know that it happened at first. Bobby has to point it out to him. Yeah, and he's also just such a badass. It's one of those two where, oh, I got shot. Huh, interesting.
But what was your initial response, Ryan?
Look, I don't want to be a nitpicking nerd boy or whatever, but I found it pretty unrealistic that he wasn't wearing a bulletproof vest. You know, he seems like the type of guy, as does Bobby, honestly, and it does not seem as if this mission and the security...
Like, he bought the suit.
He had a gun.
But he didn't think to, like, wear a suit or, you know, have...
He had a t-shirt.
He didn't have a special t-shirt that had, like...
A vest, nothing.
Thing underneath or in the fabric that made it, like... something.
He made sure
pack with him.
He made sure to pack Bobby's suit, and that's back in the ship. But he didn't have a vest, and I just found that unrealistic or just convenient for the sake of what we had to do. Maybe I'm just being unfair, and maybe I'm not appreciating the story.
Maybe we're forgetting him saying, like, "Oh, I hate wearing stuff like that."
I don't think that's ever happened, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not. I joke, I probably am, but it is a moment that rings out as we need the drama of the guy who has the ability to take down a group of people has been injured. Christian and him are behind a table. Bobby is sent to go into the vents and go get her suit because she's going to save them at the last minute. I knew that's how it was going to play that as soon as it started.
What was going to happen. Like, it's like, okay, she's going to bump into, like, probably 2 or 3 groups of dudes on her way out or obstacles. So she has the elevator shaft, she has the 2 guys with the guns, and then she has the electrician.
This is...
Beat, done.
And she's going to get her armor, and then she's going to stop the shooting at the very last second in a cool action scene. It was too predictable. But the thing is, it's not about the destination. It's about the journey. So how was the journey? It was fine. Kotia and Christian...
It got the job done.
You really are just going to keep saying that because you said that you're going to keep saying it, so now you are 100% on the train.
It's
guys,
what I believe as well. Like, that's how I feel about this episode. It got the job done. It wasn't anything special to write home about, but it was enjoyable.
There's character work. They padded out with the back and forth of negotiations between Kotia, Christian, and Mao's guys. Hey, we're just nice people. We don't want to shoot you. Plus, when...
She's got to die, but you don't.
And hey, it's always us guys that get killed for these powerful people. So let us just have her. It's fine. We'll let you go. Trust us. We've already shot you, and you killed one of my friends. But come on. While that's going on, it is about Christian and Kotia coming to terms with their relationship, what it is actually about, why it exists, and who defines it. Kotia is in service for her. He is her aide, her bodyguard, her protector, her bastion of information. And it's because, as we were led to believe, he feels the guilt about having let her son die. So in the viewpoint of us as people going through it, we assume that he feels the need to benefit her because he feels responsible, the guilt for her son's death. And she feels the same way. She uses that against him many times.
That's how she got him in the first place.
And Kotia seems like he's contemplating on the side of the Mao guys. Maybe I should give her up. Don't take the gun away from me, Christian. I'm considering it. And although I didn't believe that he would actually go through with it in the fullest of ways,
he would still protect her.
The doubt was there. Because he is a person that does not like the game she plays. He will fight for it, but he doesn't like it all that much. And so when she starts flexing her, I'm a diplomat, I'm a negotiator, I'm a political player.
He's still letting her speak for them through him.
And when they do have the moment of defining the relationship, I think it's a strong one for Kotia as a character, because I believe that for a majority of his time in the season, he has been in the way that she frames it. You were responsible for my son's death, so help me, because that will make you atone. You owe it to me. As Christian does often, she makes it a priority about her. It's actually very fascinating to look back to not just the opening of this season, but the opening of the show. When we thought of Christian as possibly the villain of the show, this evil, vindictive person who's looking out for number one. And as we've gotten to know her more and gotten to see her push herself forward, it has always been a great balancing act of, no, she's not a villain, and no, she's not a bad person. She's doing this all for the betterment of others, but
for Earth, Earth is her number one.
At the center of it all is still her. She needs to be the one. She's not afraid to take the credit for the good things and the great things she's done. She's not afraid to win. She's responsible for many horrible things that have happened because she doesn't like to lose. Let's never forget that. let's never forget that she cost the career of one of her friends, her family friends, someone who was a mentor to her, and then eventually he got killed because she can never stop playing the game, and she needs to know the rules, and she needs to beat whoever she's against. And that's how I feel about her with Kotya in this scene. This is her calculating how she can get out of this. And the best way she can get out of this right now is for this man here with the gun to go kill those people, and he'll probably die doing so, but if it means that she can crawl her way out of it, then it's worth it. So I'll say, hey, you owe me because you let my son die. But Kotya rebuffs this. What does he have to say about this? This is him really standing up against her.
I owe your son, not you. It's very straightforward. And it's not what I was expecting to hear from him, to be honest. The way that he takes ownership over that is very striking.
If you're going to sell me out, I understand. It's the rational choice. But you have to stop Ehrenreich before he can use the proto-molecule to wage the war he's always wanted. You owe me that.
I don't owe you anything.
My son...
Yes, your son. I failed my job when Sharon and Paul died. I owe him, not you. I'm paying him back by keeping his mother safe.
Bobby is told that her armor is over there, so you need to go through these vents, make your way and get it and come back and save us. Straightforward, simple, to the point. It's not particularly exciting, but instead of it being exciting or exhilarating, they make it funny. They have the elevator gag where it comes right near her face and then she gives a, whew, that was close. She goes through the ducts and she's lumbering through them. She grabs the gun from that guy she knocks out and, oh, it doesn't work. And what does the other guy say to her, Rachel? Do you remember what the other guy says when the gun does not register for her because I guess it's DNA locked or it's...
Yeah, it's a thumbprint, something like that.
He says...
Oh, what was it? It was something stupid like, oops.
And how does she proceed forward?
She kicks his ass and then says, oops.
She has a very fun delivery of that. Frankie Adams, the actress, she's really good at the comedic side of this character that we haven't really got to see before. Only in short spurts and these great little one-liners, especially between her and Kotya. They had a little bit of banter at the beginning of this episode too when it comes to that. I found it a good way to handle this particular
It gets
thing.
the job done, and it makes it different than the other plots.
Yeah, because we've seen it. We've seen this story. We've seen this scene in a million things. You're the only one that can save us, so run away.
Die
hard. Beat up some people and
collect
collect your thing and come back and save us at the last moment. And so how do you do that in a way that's fresh and original, or at least something that I can be engaged in? They decided not to go with we're going to double down on her being a badass fighter, because that's what Discovery would do. Discovery would be Michael Burnham gets stabbed in the fucking leg and then she pulls the knife out and phaser burns her leg to cauterize the wound, and then she would choke a guy out with her thighs and it reopens the wound and then she punches it closed.
That actually happened.
That actually happened. I'm not joking. I may be doing a silly voice, but that literally happened. And we would be seeing that more often, but they go with a more humorous tact where this actress is giving all of these goofy expressions. Her physicality is very expressive and she disarms people in very amusing ways. The fact that you said he kicks her ass, like she kicks his ass, you skipped over. She just threw the gun at him and it just startled him and then she beat him up. Like, that is very funny, but it's also resourceful. What else would she do? Oh, this gun doesn't work. I'll still use it as a weapon, motherfucker. And
John Wick got credit for that. So why not, Bobby?
Yeah. Fuck, that is one of my favorite things in the John Wick movies is when he runs out of bullets in his gun, he just throws them at people, and it's a very successful maneuver. She comes up to this electrician, this guy who's just doing his day job. This is my job. He has an ultimatum. Hey, if you fuck with me, I'm going to let go of this button, and then you'll never be able to get inside, so don't mess with me. And they have a bit of a standoff. But it's not much of a standoff.
No. They take the funny way out, which is him being like, yeah, I think you're right. This isn't worth dying for. So you're not going to kill me? Nah. Okay, but can you beat me up a little bit so that I don't look like I just let you through?
And she gives him that little expression of, yeah, I guess. Like, yeah, sure. And we assume that happens off screen. This is the moment I wanted to really break apart. This show isn't funny like that often. This was a very laugh out loud, oh, random, you didn't expect that. There's this guy who seems like just another douchebag. You can't get in here because I work for the bad guy. And then he says, actually, my way of trying to stop you wouldn't work because you just beat me up anyway. I'm not a soldier. I'm just an electrician. Leave me alone. I'm just a common Joe. Oh, please, I'm scared. Let's work out a deal. And again, the acting between the two is very much played for yucks. And I don't know if it landed well for me because I'm trained at this point to accept that The Expanse has a very specific type of humor that's pretty dry for the most part, very, very much comes in like very quietly, and every now and then it'll be like Amos says, we're fucked, and it's things like that. But this type of joke felt very like the Orville type humor to me. It was very
Your hesitation in saying that says a lot. I wasn't a huge fan of it, and I don't like the Orville. But it was a choice, and I respected it as a choice, even though I didn't particularly enjoy the humor. I just kind of paid less attention because it was like, well, I already know how this is going to end, so I'm not invested in the journey, and the show isn't that invested. Thus, they're like, we're not going to take it too seriously. But I like that they did it that way.
What do you think about the statement being made, whether it is on purpose or not, that Mal, the most dangerous and important person in the universe right now, has a ship full of buffoons? Because they're all goofy and silly and not treated at all as a serious threat.
They're no challenge for Bobby. I think it makes a lot of sense because he is being attacked directly, and that is not what he was prepared for. He was prepared to be in the middle and make Earth, Mars, and the Belt fight each other. So he has guards, but he doesn't have the best of them. Because that's not what he is
there to
have.
He underestimates the possibilities of a situation, which is key to him having the proto-molecule, because he underestimates the possibilities.
And also, like, he left Earth in a hurry. But, yeah, he just does not seem like he knows what he's doing enough to have good security. He trusts that what he has is enough.
I think that there's a middle ground the series should find with Mal's presence and his forces, because we have had them be in two modes outside of the scientists, just move beyond the evil scientists. We've had them be goofballs like this, easy, or we had them be the ones that kidnapped Julie in the first place. These mustache twirling, I'm an evil, evil person. Mwahaha, I'm evil military. Mwahaha, capitalism. Wah. And I really do hope that in the future, they can find a way of making his forces be as intimidating as Mao is and the actor who portrays Mao. Because I find him to be far more of a danger and a threatening foe than his actual goons ever are. And I think that this series is capable of that because the Martians have been very successful at this and the OPA as well. And I just hope that when we get more of Mao to come, his muscle is actually worthy of time, because it is in this, we have it one way or the other. We have them be ludicrous as they were in this one, where you never were worried that they could hurt the characters. Cartier got shot, but it didn't feel as impending of a doom as, say, when the Martian Marines are tearing through stuff. And we've had them be on the other end where they're just so mustache-twirlingly evil that when they get destroyed or killed by their own hubris, it's kind of humorous in itself.
It's like, oh, they're so dumb. It's funny that they're dead.
I swear I'll lock it down for good.
What makes you think I need to get in the dropship?
There's nothing else down here. Unless I've dramatically misjudged the situation.
You're right.
Oh, thank God.
But you haven't locked me out yet.
Yeah,
Because as soon as you do,
there's nothing to keep you from beating me to death.
you're right about that too.
Back on the Rossi. Just like it didn't take us long to figure out how that plot was going to go on Mao's ship, doesn't take them too long to figure out that the monster is on the ship.
I like the reveal when they were going through all of the security cameras and then it's just really, really close to one, and Alex had just cycled through it very quickly, but
And Naomi's like, what the fuck is that?
it was actually a scary image when it did that first time, that first flick through. It was a disarming thing because you got enough of the visual. Yeah, you got enough of the visual recognition, but not too much where you really got, that's what it looks like, until they went back to it. They find the hybrid. It's on the ship, Rach. So
Exactly where we knew that it was going to be, and it's hungry.
So what does that mean for the crew of the Rossi now?
Well, it means that Holden conveniently gets pinned in there with it. And it's trying to dig its way to the core. So it can nom 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 noms on that radiation.
Naomi says it's time for the hunt. They've got to go back to hunting it down and killing it. And you
And again, Prax is the one that comes in clutch and saves the motherfucking day.
Oh, and I thought you were going to say he was the one that was arguing a way other than violence, and perhaps we could reason with it and or at least communicate with it to see how sentient it is, because this was a person once. And this is a living being. How much of it is actually just a mindless killing machine, and how much of it is alive and like us? And we'll go through all of the beats of this, or at least as much as possible, but I want to get a clue from you of where you land by the end of the episode. How much of this hybrid creature do you find to have been as a sentient being, like something that you could look at and say that was a human once, or is this just a monster, an animal, an alien being? How much of a separation?
I think it definitely evolved from human tissue DNA. Like, it's built like a human. And it walks like a human. And it turns like a human. It does all of those things in a very human way.
With enough of an abstract to it.
Yes. Where it's clearly not no longer human. And I land somewhere in between of this thing used to be human. It is no longer that, but it still has intelligence. And it has more force than intelligence, which is what makes it dangerous, because it doesn't have enough intelligence to be reasoned with.
Would you say it's like an animal?
Yes.
Would you say it has feelings?
No, I think it has wants and needs.
Okay.
It needs the radiation source.
Because it's hungry.
Yeah, and it wants to be efficient in that.
It's intelligent enough to get rid of the device from itself.
Yes, and it doesn't go after Holden when he's not a direct threat.
I want to put this forward, and I want to know if this muddies the waters on everything you've just said. It was a child. It probably doesn't have the intelligence because it was a 4-year-old one time. These are little children that, like, from what we saw, like 4 to 8 years old.
Yeah, but it does sway things. But for me, we've seen the proto-molecule be so efficient in its destruction of things that I feel like that drive.
When we saw Julie in the episode where we finally got the inside of Eros Station and she was at the center of it all, and Miller admitted his love to her and they both seemingly died, what was she? Was she still a human to you? Was she still a cognizant being? Like, where does she fall in the spectrum? Because I was just thinking about her as well, where she was completely transformed from the proto-molecule, while this is arguably supposed to be you are enhanced by it.
Yeah, I still feel like...
Because she also lacked a lot of those senses we would define as a rounded human.
I want to go home. Very childish, basic instincts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring this up because I like Prax. And so when he's talking about all of this, I take it seriously and I want to dig around and contemplate it, because the episode itself brings it up, but it's often thrown to the side because we've got more important things to do than listen to the plant guy who's most likely worried that this is his daughter. But he brings it up, and so I want to think about it, and I want to go through as much of evidence and all of that as possible. And I think very similarly to you, but there were moments where the hybrid had expressions on its face and frailty, and when it was on the outside of the ship and it was crawling towards Prax, it had this inquisitive look, and it looked... there was a connection there. And even though this is like a hideous CGI gross creature, they put enough expression into the face for me to be able to see that there's something more there than it just being a...
It's not simply a monster. That's not a question for me.
But is it a sentient being? And if this is the so-called evolved form of humanity to come, because that's what Dresden argued, like, if we use it, we could do these things, like we can survive in space, we don't need these things. But you look at it in this episode, you look at this thing tearing through the hull because it wants food. Like, is that what we would want to become? Like, is that even what this hybrid creature is? Is that what you would even recognize as a intelligent life form, let alone one that you would actually say has a soul. And this is actually exceptional in this episode, the way that they do this. To have all of this action hijinks and still have enough time to think about
the metaphysics?
The metaphysical implications of this. The philosophical implication, the existential. And we can have so much of it there where we can chew on it for a long time afterwards. It's not just a throwaway line here or there that gets your chin stroking. They do examine it. Not just with characters talking, but the way that the hybrid is designed. I imagine it's a performance capture thing, but I thought the design of this was great. I thought it looked great, but the way it moved and the way it didn't move and its expressions were human enough where it makes you uneasy, but it's also abstract and gross enough where you want it just to be a monster.
Animalistic. It is humanoid.
But also it is one where when you turn off the ship, it will be, oh, there's that Holden guy. I'll go kill him. And then you turn the ship back on and he goes, oh yeah, Holden. I kind of forgot about that. Rip up the ship again. It does have a mindless quality to it. And I like, it's very well done.
It's driven by basic needs.
Yeah. But you could also argue a child is driven by basic needs in a lot of ways. And that's something too. Why children? Why children are they doing this to? I mean, there's many reasons you could say that, but usually with a super soldier program, they get like the toughest of the toughest Marines and they inject them with the thing and they make the Abomination to fight the Hulk, you know? Well, this is like, let's inject
a soldier.
Oh, the Kurt Russell film?
Yeah.
Where but that's still like they're raising them to be soldiers. They've got civilian children and injected them with DNA of an alien life form and said, now go fight.
I think that there's something special about those children with the condition that May has.
Do you think there is a condition, or was that just an excuse to inject her with blue goo? I always thought that it was an excuse.
I thought that was an actual thing in the world.
Sorry about your little girl. Still don't know what happened to her. Not for sure.
You're right. That thing that broke out of the lab, do you think that used to be a kid?
I think so.
They don't have time to think about the metaphysical implications of this. They're going to shoot it in the fucking face. And that line, there's no time for the metaphysical implications, is an infamous line from Star Trek Discovery we like to bring up because it itself is a great critique of what Star Trek Discovery does not prioritize, which is talking about that because, you know, that would be good and they would rather have action. And I like that The Expanse seems like it does that, but in so doing,
it chooses when.
It chooses not only when to have the action, but in turn says that the action is getting in the way because Holden just gets fucking wrecked immediately. He's punished for trying to do the action hero, let's shoot the monster in the face approach to winning. He just gets pinned to the wall. His leg is crushed. He is just stuck there. His gun is out of reach. And he's just as is expected, useless. He's completely useless in this episode. And that's something that you can see in a lot of shows, right? Where the main hero is incapacitated in the last episode.
I do believe that one of my predictions was that we're going to be made to believe that one of the main characters is going to die, and they don't.
You thought one of them was going to get blue gooed. And
that was my out of left field.
It was a good out of left field. Holden believes that he's dying. Enough time has passed. He's seeing his suit flare up. He's feeling it. And
he's running out of time.
And so he faces all of the things that he's done up to this moment and regrets them. He talks to Naomi about it. And what do you think? Holden facing his end and looking at it with a tinge of regret, and he's trying to motivate Naomi not to fall into the same pitfalls he did.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Each decision that he made for a reason. but he was never comfortable with those decisions. And then in the last couple of episodes, he's just been so tunnel vision and leaving behind his morality. I don't.
Does he have any left?
Yeah.
Well, he wants to have it again. He wants to say, golly gee, I learned that was bad. But as soon as he's presented with the opportunity to do it again, he does it again. Hence, he's pinned to this wall in the first place. And they bring up something I actually forgot, honestly.
Yeah.
Which is he has this whole spiel about like, hey, don't give in to revenge. I'm ordering you not to. Please don't do this. But listen to me. Please listen to what I have to say, because I've been on the other end of this conversation, and not getting to know what it was all about has haunted me. He brings up that his girlfriend died in the first episode, and how she had something important to tell him that she didn't get the time to before, and then she died. We never got to know what it was. He never got to know what it was. We never got to know what it was. And I forgot about that. Like,
oh, did you? I haven't. Well, I'm just like,
it's not been a priority.
We're never going to get an answer to that.
But I mean, his girlfriend existing in the first place. Like, I know she does, but it hasn't really weighed on my mind when it comes to his character that he is now physically in a similar place to where she was, where it's a moment before the end comes. And he is going to let Naomi know. He's going to open up his heart and his mind to her. And I thought it was very sweet. I liked it. I had a good time with Holden coming to terms with how a lot of his decision-making has been dumb. Amos points this out. But his heart has been in the right place. That although his morality has been questionable, he has always been trying to do good.
Yeah.
Even if he's been an egotistical prick about it at times, or a failure. And Naomi, you know, she takes this into consideration and all of this, but as we wrap up the season, what do you think about this being where we come to with Holden's character?
I am a little bit worried it's going to be a reset and we do this again next season kind of situation, where he's not actually going to change what he's been like.
He's going to go through it again?
Or it's going to go back to the start and then he's going to fall down again.
What makes you say that? Just because at the end of the last season, he was headstrong and put himself in a moment where he was almost at death's door only to end the season in sickbay with Naomi?
That doesn't help. But it's more being traumatized by Discovery, where they do that with almost every character.
So, it's now your responsibility to go through what Amos has in the episode and his realization and his growth as a person and what he's had to struggle through during the season. So, tell us a bit about what's going on with Amos in regards to all of that good stuff, because although I don't love Amos as much as you do, I think that they've handled his stuff really well, and the way that they put a voice to everything he's gone through, I thought it was really accurate is the way I would describe it. So tell us a bit about Amos.
Amos knows a lot about how people die. And he sort of grapples with that a little bit in this episode, how he's been exposed to death and danger in all of these different ways for his whole life. And thinking about how he's dealt with that. That's one part of what happens with him in this episode. And he's really reflecting on his experiences and what that means for him as a person.
he has that conversation with Naomi where she apologizes and he apologizes about what went down last time when she had to give him those tranks because he was not allowing her to save those people.
Yeah, you said what you needed and I didn't listen. That's on me.
But then she counters that, she argues that. And he says something that we have seen be an issue for him, which is he has lived his life trying to be what he just said to Naomi, like, you did this and I didn't do that. It's this sense of I belong in a hierarchy and I do as I'm told.
Yeah.
But he's trying to make choices for himself.
Yeah, he says, I've been trying to make choices on my own lately, and I can't seem to make the right ones.
Holden's been doing the exact same thing. He's been making the wrong choices, the bad choices. But he's expected to make choices on his own because that's what he was raised for. He's Jimmy Holden.
Captain.
He's the captain, and he was born and bred to be a leader, even if he doesn't want it. And Amos is just the big guy who kills people and punches people, but now he's changing. He's evolving. He says he has this rapport with Holden now where they're friends or they're friendly, when at the beginning he was willing to shoot him in the back of the head and throw him into space. I would kill you if I was allowed to, but I'm told I'm not to, so I won't do it. But he sees the importance of Holden. And not just the importance of Holden, but the importance of others and himself. He is still realizing that to its fullest potential. Hence, there's more seasons of the show. Because if he knew that completely, then what would you do with Amos as a character? And he's got some great stuff here. He talks about this incident in the past where this suit exploded and it shot the guy out, and he suggests that they basically do that to the hybrid and shoot it out into space, and that may not work because it will kill Holden, and he says no it won't, but he's lying. He's lying, but Holden knows it too. He can rely...
Everybody knows it's a lie.
And Holden has a heart's heart with him where he knows that Amos is reliable. When at the beginning of the show, early on, he thought of him as a wild animal.
He's too hot-headed to be reliable.
He is someone that you have to keep on a leash. And back to the hybrid conversation about how human or inhuman it is. A lot of the things that you described about the hybrid, you know, someone could easily
describe Amos
with a lot of similar traits to it. Obviously, the hybrid is a heightened thing because it's this grand sci-fi construction and it's a ghoulish monster that they have to explode. But I think there's still validity to...
There's parallels.
And it goes into what Dr. Kodazar was saying about we must strip away all of these things to be better. And so we see that with the hybrid, and it's not appealing. And Amos has arguably been through that with his own journey of trauma, and it does not make him a better person. Him connecting with others and allowing himself to feel a spectrum of emotions is making him a better person. Hence, Amos no longer needs to be relied on by just one individual, which was Naomi. Now everyone can rely on him. Even Prax, who's afraid of him, but knows that Amos, push comes to shove, is a good person.
Yeah, he's also becoming more comfortable with the grey. And that's part of what he learned from that conflict with Alex. But also, he's putting that in action in the way that he's going about things now.
In case I have to kill you, I just wanted to say thanks. You made some pretty stupid choices since you've been in charge, but you're always trying to do the right thing, so.
Yeah.
That came out bad.
I mean, you were always trying to be a good man. Not everybody does, thank you. It's nice not having to worry about being on the right team.
Although Alex does not get a ton to do, I sadly think it is a perfect summary of his journey during the season, which is he really is in the back.
He's bonded with the ship.
He really is just a background player, which I'm disappointed by. He was one of my favorites during the first season. I like this performance. I like the character, but
He's stepped back.
He's far more like a Star Trek character in that way, where he is the guy that will make sure that the heroes can save the day.
He's an ensign.
He is Sulu. He drives the ship. He's there too. And
I just feel resigned to it. It's just like they can't do everything, but there are still trying to do some things with him, but they're much, much smaller than our other characters, and I still hope that he'll step into the light at some point, but the longer the show goes on, the more I question whether that's a role that he's going to get to fulfill. As we mentioned, Holden gets taken out of commission fairly quickly because he leaps into action, and Naomi is dead set on finding a way out of this situation that doesn't kill Holden, unlike Amos's plan.
because she loves Holden. She cannot do what Troy could. She's like Troy in Star Trek when she was doing the command program, where she had a difficult time being able to sacrifice people she knows. And this is her challenge. I might have to kill Holden to kill this bigger threat, but she flinches at it.
She will only do it basically when it's too late to do anything else.
And when Holden says, don't go in revenge mode, don't go the way that I did, you see through that performance her really, really struggle and not know if she is capable of that great amount of strength that it would take to be a better person in the way that he's asking. Because we have seen her throughout the season do a bunch of questionable actions and hold certain beliefs because of that mindset. And so him saying to her, don't do that, do this for me instead, it's a lot to ask, and you can tell it's a lot to ask of her.
Yeah, and you do wonder how what happened with her kid impacts that, because she says that she went too far blindly and endangered people.
And it didn't get her the results she was hoping for.
It didn't bring back her son. So is it her being worried about being able to fulfill her word? Or is it also, but I think it is also her reflecting on what happened in her past.
And then we have the real hero of the show. This guy, this fucking guy. He came in late in the season, knocked on the door and said, hello, I'm one of the new characters that you are going to accept as one of the mains and one of the most important and one of the most lovable and competent. And with how this show has handled that in the past, I'm like, this could go one way or the other. Because it has been a gamble, like 50-50 with this series of it being something that can work and it being something that fails. He's not a Havelock. You know, we joke about Havelock is always a funny thing, but like Havelock was a symptom of a writing problem. But on the other side, we have characters similar to Prax where they come on in and they just have this flair to them and they just slot in so nicely, and you almost forget what the show was like without them. Like, Prax feels, he's still new. Like, they acknowledge something that we went through in discussions previously on this podcast of he has a certain set of skills that they do not have and they do not understand. So he may not be able to relate to them and they may not be able to relate to him. And so they have to get to know each other and they have to work through a crisis together and figure out their capabilities. They treat him like the doctor. They're like, hey, can you cure me of this? It's like, I'm a plant doctor. I don't know anything about medicine.
Amos calls him Doc, and he's just like, no.
Oh my God, yeah.
And he's like, when they're like taking the nuke for a walk, he's like, I guess digging a bullet out won't be the weirdest thing that I did today. Okay.
Prax is so fucking good. He did it again. He proved that it does not matter who you are. You can change the world. You can change the tides. You are important. He's the botanist. He's the guy that looks at plants. They just call him the plant guy, but he comes up with the solution to save the day, to save their lives.
To save all of them.
And it did not involve shooting and violence and just that be it. If it was up to him, they probably wouldn't have killed the creature. You could tell he was contemplating it, obviously, at the end when he froze, but he is just... He's a voice of reason, but not one where it comes across as prissy. You know what I mean by that? He's not a Wesley Crusher type where he's like, I'm ever so smart. Why don't you listen to me? He's not precocious or a know-it-all.
He's not an angel on their shoulders. He is a character.
But one that they don't appreciate. Like, Holden treats him like shit. Holden should, like... At the beginning of the series, he was the fish out of water when it came to the group. Like, they knew each other. He didn't really know them too well. He had to prove himself. You would think he would have some sympathy for Prax, but he really does. He just treats him like garbage in a lot of ways. He's a bully. He's a bully to this guy who just wants to save his daughter, and he's a genuinely nice man, and Holden just keeps pooping on him all the time. But Prax is asked to do something, and on the way, he gets distracted because there's some plants on the ship that we've seen before. Yeah. And did you figure out what he was figuring out?
No.
Really?
Not straight away. I was just like, why is there a hole in the middle where there's no plants?
I
was like, is there blue goo there?
You thought there was something in it.
Yeah. I was looking for a literal thing, but it was a figurative thing.
He looks at them, these plants, and how they're going towards the light, and determines that since this is a creature of a certain... Well, I can't remember the exact phrase he uses, but like it's of a certain variety, and so it's drawn to...
The nutrient
nutrient, yes. And nutrient pathway, and so we can look at it that same way. So it is drawn to this radiation. So if we just give it some other radiation, we can lure it out somewhere. Although I found this to be a little bit more of a slower paced episode, one that I wasn't hootering and hollering at, I did with this. This is just one of those classic, this is why you come to science fiction TV, when the nerdy character gives a piece of exposition about why their nerdy profession is going to help win. When it's done well, it can be one of the most entertaining things about this medium, about the genre of science fiction on television. How many times when you've watched a Star Trek or Babylon 5, when that happens and you just fist pump, you're like, yes,
it's
yes.
a fuck yeah moment.
And how nerdy are we? Where we can say a guy explaining how his interest in plants can do this, we are just saying, that's a fuck yeah moment.
Yeah, we're fucking nerds.
Prax leads the hybrid out into space on the outside of the ship, and He believes for a moment that it could be his daughter.
He wants to be sure.
We've gone through all of these characters and their progressions through the season. He's been here for half the season, if that. And yet I feel like we could do the same with him, right? Him worrying that this is his daughter is obviously the thing that drives his character.
Yes.
But he isn't dumb enough to fuck it all up because he thinks it could be.
No. But he will make sure that it's not his daughter before he makes sure to kill it.
He throws this device from the warhead out. It tries to catch it, but it's in space, and then they roast it with the burners of the ship. They just fly off, and we see it disintegrate. We see it get almost atomized. We zoom in, and we see the blue goo tendrils. What did you think of just how they sorted it out?
It was cool. It was resourceful and a solution that only works in that situation. So it won't be like, why don't they just do that next time? It's like, no, it works here for this thing.
You guys really saved my ass.
Actually, it was his idea. This is one steely-eyed man of science, our plant guy.
Holden is all getting patched up. He's cracking jokes with the crew. They're hitting his injured leg. Oh, how funny. And Naomi has to be the killjoy. She has to let us know that there will be more things in season 3. That's how I feel. Like, it's a great reveal, but it cannot help but feel like a selling point to
very much like next season on The Expanse.
It lacks that natural flow. Even though they are interesting or even though they are things that I am invested in seeing play out, these last 2 big reveals do come across as very much, we gotta sell the audience that there's more, that you want more. I know I want more, but what does Naomi have to reveal, Rachel?
She gave Fred fucking Johnson the protomolecule. She thought she was going to die.
On the Somnambulist, yeah.
I feel like she did it before she walked out to talk to the crowd.
It does not matter. At some point she thought she was done.
Yep.
And in part that's thanks to Holden being a fuckhead. But she messaged up Fred Johnson to give him the proto-molecule because of what reasoning? What's her reasoning?
Because the belt has to have it too.
Mutually assured destruction. As Mal put it, each side should have the proto-molecule because that way we're all even. And in her brain and in many people's, well, that means nothing will happen. Come on. You just dealt with the hybrid. Look what that was. Come on. And we see Fred Johnson. We see it. We don't just get told. We see him
collecting it.
How would you describe his expression?
In awe and delighted.
It's almost as if he's seen an angel.
He looks like he's opening his presents on Christmas morning. That's what it looks like to me.
It is the most important thing of all time to him. As it would be, of course. This is an advantage which he needs because he's down and out right now. That's where we left him. So him having the proto-molecule gives him a leg up, which makes it so unsettling where we leave off with him because we know that he can be, he's had noble traits about him. But we've also seen when he gets desperate, the stuff he's capable of doing. And he's in a desperate state right now. He's been rejected by the OPA. So it's not even giving the OPA the blue goo.
No, it is giving it to Fred. And by extension, the belt.
You would hope. But how much is Fred his own? agent in all of this now. I can't wait to see. And then the final scene is confirming Prax's daughter is alive, and I do believe she's on Mars in some facility where she's packaged up in amongst all of these other packages of children, and she's put on ice. She's put on ice, Rachel.
Yeah, she's frozen.
We're just going to keep that story in stasis for now. We're going to return to it later. We'll crack open that fridge when we get there. And do you think that that is a good way to end the season?
Yeah and no. Like I said, these last 2 scenes are just next season on The Expanse. And I'm not that interested. It doesn't leave me wanting more.
I don't know why they ended it with the Prax daughter one. I found that to be the less, like that one to be lesser. If you ended it on Fred Johnson's face and him getting the proton molecule,
that would have been more impactful for sure.
You have to confirm that she's alive so that they have something to go towards.
Necessary.
I don't know. It also just felt like they played it up as like this spooky thing. The Dr. Strickland is delivering it in this very artificially creepy way. There's almost like this kidsy whistling sound going on. It feels very, we're trying to do a spooky, scary thing here. I would rather have it ended with Fred Johnson getting the blue goo. Like, that's what I'll remember the season ending on, rather than Prax's daughter is still alive, but she's frozen on Mars. We'll see that come into play next time. On our rating system of Yum being bad and Yum Yum being good, what would you give Caliban's War, Rachel?
Yum Yum.
Yum yum.
I'm going to land on a Yum Yum.
Yum yum.
Purely because this episode brought out a lot of things to think about and discuss. And I don't mean that just for the sake of us being podcasters, but in the terms of what science fiction wants you to do. We looked over the hybrid thing, for instance, but there's so many moments and concepts and themes that we could roll around like that are in this episode. This is meaningful television. This wasn't the best episode I've ever seen of this season or this series, but it did have a purpose. This wasn't just they were aiming up high and they missed it by just this much. They did hit it. And I appreciate it for that reason, rather than I'm giving it a Yum Yum because I thought it was a firecracker of an episode like I did with the last one.
It hit the board, but not the bullseye.
It makes me think a lot more than some other episodes, which I prefer more. So it does have an importance to it, something potent. And I think that when we go to our season recap next episode, we'll have more to go on because of how this ended. And I think as a season finale, I prefer this one over the last one. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So, talking about next time, we will be taking a moment to look back on season 2, talk about the high points, low points, things that have made us reconsider our views on the series as a whole, characters we've come to love or characters we've come to hate. All of that stuff will be covered on the next podcast. But what do you think is going to be happening going forward? What are your predictions for season 3? I'm not just going to leave it to what do you think will happen in the season 3 opener, but in season 3, what is happening in The Expanse?
I think Prax is going to die. That's my out of left field prediction.
So you just saw me shake my head because I don't want that. I like him too much.
I like him a lot too. But they do have a habit of killing members of the Rossi.
You're right.
It's
happened like twice. And the doctor was the first one to go last time.
Yeah. Shep?
Yeah, Shed.
So that's my fear for next season. Is that they're going to kill Prax. I really like him too. And I think Holden and Naomi are going to break up.
Yes. I mean, oh no.
I
sad.
think I'm going to continue to drool over Amos and be embarrassed at the thought of the actor hearing about this.
Wes, we know you're listening. Come on over. Come on over to the Patreon. You'll hear these episodes earlier if you do that. Imagine if you did. That would be weird. And we have him in the Discord chatting with us. He's also a person who watched. This would be weird. Any big brain predictions? So you have your out of left field. You have the ones that are hopeful of them breaking up and you still being attracted to Amos, but
I think we aren't going to get much Christian for the first couple of episodes. I think they're going to stay out in the belt for a little while and then return back to her.
And do you think there's going to be any big shifts in allegiances or the factions or the status quo?
I think Ehrenreich is going to become the general secretary. I think he's going to get the number one job.
You think he's going to become the Secretary General of the UN and run the world? Do you think he's going to kill the other guy? Or do you think he's going to be running it as a shadow, as a puppet master?
No, I feel like he's going to fully step in now.
I hope so. I would love to see him just fully step in, or the reveal being that the Secretary General has been in on it the whole time. And he's also a piece of shit. My big prediction is that the Venus stuff is going to be a thing that comes in sideways into all of the other plots happening, and they don't know what to do about it because now no one's there. The scientists and the Martians have been wiped out as far as we can tell. So what does that mean going forward?
Well, they definitely have no way of communicating.
They've been incapacitated. And I think that Julie is going to be there. I still think Julie will show up.
I think Julie and Miller are going to show up.
Other prediction? Mao's daughter, the one that we've heard about, will show up in the season. I thought she was going to be here in this season with the way they talked about her, but they keep mentioning her, so she has to be a person that we see at some point. Status quo, I thought they were going to have a full-on breakout of war by the end of this season, so I'm going to predict that will happen next season, that Mars and Earth will finally ignite the war and go head-to-head with one another. They will lock horns, they will battle it out, that there will be blood shed across space. And my final prediction, the other one that I wanted to put down, is simple. And it may seem obvious, but it also may seem hopeful, but I want Anderson Dawes to be a player in this story again, because he took a major backstep in the season.
He's been sidelined.
But when he was here, he was a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely.
And they can't leave him with where they've got him for a season. I hope he comes back next season to really shake up the game. And if I have a character death prediction, I think it's going to be Fred Johnson.
Yeah.
I think Fred Johnson's going to get killed off, and his right-hand woman will get a name. That will be also a prediction. And she'll step up. Oh, and actual final prediction, the Mormons will return and have a storyline. I want the Mormons to be here again, because after they off-screen raised a fuss about Fred Johnson stealing their ship, nothing. Absolutely nothing. No mention, no anything.
I want them to take over the station.
Do you think their ship will do anything outside of what it's already done? Do you think that it will be involved in a storyline? Do you think that we'll ever see it?
But I'm not hopeful right now.
Here's my crazy one. I think the blue goo will get on that fucking ship because it's an ark.
Ooh.
How fucking wicked would it be if that became an Eros station incident? That became like a staging ground for these shenanigans. Or the opposite, where our crew must form a staging ground at Tycho Station and with the Mormons to fight back against everything. That would be cool. That's it. That's all we have to say about Caliban's War. I hope you've all enjoyed yourselves. I hope you got a kick out of us predicting things and also relishing the things that have come to pass in this finale. Rachel, where can people find us on the internet?
They can find us on the various social medias that are slowly but hopefully surely dying.
It's like the blue goo. It's forever changing, and every moment
it's
that
evolving,
passes,
perhaps devolving.
But we're on a lot of them, at least.
But we're on them still. Thanks to Ryan. Under yumyumpod or yumyumpodcast. If you want to email us, you can do so by directing it at yumyumpod@gmail.com. If you want to message us on Discord, then you have to join the Patreon for that, where you also get these episodes early.
We release these for our patrons on Patreon first, as well as so much other content. So if you have the means to do so, or the inclination, support the show.
Hopefully both.
All of this is in the description of the episode, as well as us saying thank you, kissy face, kiss, kiss. It's been...
Neither of our predictions included the Gaunt Belter.
I was being nice and not going to mention him until the very end, but I just also... It's been a little while since I've said this, as have you, but it's always true nonetheless, but... It really means a lot that you guys listen to the show, that you have a grand old time, that people support us on the Patreon and love to hear what we have to say and are willing to back us and support us, to hear us go through the Expanse for the first time. It's always great to have people listening to the show and sharing it about and having a conversation about the things that we say. I've been going back and listening to some of the previous discussions we had and just guffawing at some of the things that we just offhandedly said that did come into play in the season, or running gags that I didn't know were running gags. I went back and I heard that I mentioned in season 1 that it would be great if Paul Hogan was cast as the Secretary General.
In your brain.
And then later on, I made a joke about Paul Hogan should be cast as this Dr. Accent guy. 3rd season prediction, final one, Paul Hogan will be in the season. And he will be the Gaunt Belter's dad. Or grandfather.
I thought you were going to say that they recast.
They would never. How dare you? They would, and with Paul, no way. The Gaunt Belter did not show up, but we remember him greatly, and we mourn his loss. Thank you all so much for listening, as said, and until next time, remember to be kind to each other, or else... you're gonna get an earful of the Gaunt Belters preaching about those bloody dusters.
See you then. Well, voila.